Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So good to have all of you here with us tonight for our third and final webinar before this year's Siana Gurmat retreat. As you all probably know, because you're here, this will be a sort of Ask Me Anything webinar. A lot of you have submitted really phenomenal questions, really important questions, and I feel really lucky that we have two amazing speakers with us tonight. I think we are actually going to do an announcement first, though. Thank you, Mandip Ji. So Ujjwal Didar Singh is going to give us some quick information about the retreat that I just mentioned, and then we will get into our program for tonight.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Just quickly wanted to make a few announcements. Thank you all for joining us again for the third time this summer, spring, whatever that is. As most of you have been a part of the journey, we're building up towards the annual Siana Gurmat retreat. We had our farmer protest informational webinar a month ago right now. We had our Apna Mool Pachan discussion about the identification and understanding and interpretation of Vaheguru. Now today we're having our Ask Us Anything session. All of this is building towards this communal learning system that we're trying to foster through this platform, all gearing up towards retreat, which is happening in 2 weeks, and we're really excited to have everyone participate and give their feedback so we can always keep learning and getting better at all of this. Just quick reminders to everyone. For retreat itself, the schedule is now online on our website, sikhyouthAlliance.org. As you'll see on the website, our theme Shabad is Mera Mantan Birhon Gur Sikh Paglaya, Mere Pran Sakha Gur Ke Sikh Pai, Moko Karo Updesh, Har Mila Milaya. The theme this year is Sangat, and because of COVID, as we all have been yearning more and more for Sangat, we just wanted to get together and learn who our Sangat should be, where we can find it, and how we can keep it with us at all times. So the days will pretty much look like this as shown on the schedule. You can peruse it in detail on the Siana website. We'll start Friday evening with a light introduction and have icebreakers. And through Saturday and Sunday, we'll have our main workshops. The days aren't very packed. There's 3 or 4 workshops each day, starting with Simran and Nithanem early in the morning, but then the workshops start at 9. We end with Raras around 6:30, with there being like 2 hour and a half breaks throughout the day. The only request right now is to go on the website, tell your friends, tell your family who fall within this age group of 18 to 35 that this retreat is being catered towards them. Tell them to register. There's a nominal $15 fee that's probably going to go towards some really useful charitable cause. And follow us on Instagram at SY Alliance and other formats, other social media websites to stay updated. With all of that, I'll quickly introduce our moderator slash panelist, the double tasker for today, Harleen Kaur. She is a community organizer, educator, and a sociology PhD candidate, and we're really fortunate to have her among us and part of our Sangat. She's going to be, as I said, moderating and giving her feedback on the questions during this webinar. So Harleen Kaur, just take it away.
Thank you so much, Virji. And I hope all of you can definitely attend the retreat. I know after a year or more, we all feel really tired of Zoom. And I think going into retreat last year, I was like, oh, I don't know what it's going to be like sitting on my computer for 2 days or 3 days when I'm used to being with Sangat in person. But it was such a beautiful experience. I learned so much from all of the different speakers. So I really encourage all of you to register as soon as you can. So I'm going to quickly introduce our wonderful panelists for tonight. The first most important thing that you need to know about both of them is that they are both from Buffalo, New York. That's really the primary takeaway for tonight. The second is that, as you all will see as we hear from them tonight, both of them have played such a huge role in different and unique ways in my own journey with Sikhi. So I'm really excited for you all to hear from both of them and have them share their understanding, what they have learned through their own experiences, building a relationship with Guru Sahib, understanding Vaheguru as we live in this world. Of course, though, everything we share tonight will be based on our own experience. We don't, claim to just have one singular right answer. You'll probably even hear as we all answer that we're going to have different answers to these questions. And hopefully that'll show you that even though you all submitted these questions, again, as we already shared, being in Sangat together, doing vichar, these are really the ways that we can come to our own understanding of Gursikh Jivan. So just a little bit more detail, we have Sangeeta Kaur Benji, who is a huge Sevadar for Siana. She has been attending camp since she was 10, and she also continued to sort of move into, doing different Sevadar roles over the years. She's also an OB-GYN, also a board member of Guard Life, so she does a lot of different Seva in the community, and I think will give us a really unique perspective tonight. Amarjit Singh Uncle Ji also has done so much Seva for Siana camp from really the very beginning, has taught so many camps over the years. I still have very vivid memories of sitting in that little hall outside Kirtan class, very specifically learning the translation for Mittar Pyare Nu. I don't know why just that Shabad stays in my head, but yeah, I think so many of us can remember our memories learning from Amarjit Singh Uncle Ji in camp. Uncle Ji also, came to the US for medical training, has that sort of connection as well. And I know some of you sent in some questions in terms of how do we navigate like our medical experiences in Sikhi. So just that context, I think both of them will be able to really answer those from their experience. So what I wanted to start off with, we got a lot of important questions, but I think one very timely one for sure. And I'd like to direct this to both of you that, as a global community, we're experiencing an immensely difficult time, obviously. A lot of different global issues are happening. On top of the pandemic, we're seeing, I could name so many, but how as Sikhs can we cope with the huge amounts of negativity and loss that constantly surround us these days? If we're having recurring bad or negative thoughts, how do we control our mind? Is that even what we should be doing from a Gurmat perspective? So Sangeeta Benji, maybe do you mind starting us off?
Sure, thank you, Harleen Kaur. I'm excited to be here and excited to sit on this panel with Amarjit Uncle, who since my childhood has been very instrumental in just helping me understand and learn Guru Shabad, and for that I will be forever grateful. And I think this year has been particularly difficult for a lot of us, and why this question I think is so important, because the idea of loss and sadness and sorrow is like around us constantly. And the interesting thing is that sometimes when you start thinking about something, I find that Guru Sahib all of a sudden gives you like an answer in front of you, and you're like, oh, okay, yes, that's how I'm going to get through this. And and I think, like you said, in the perspective that Amarjit Uncle and I even have in the medical world, we've seen a lot of loss related to COVID, like physical loss. And we've seen a lot of the sadness that happens when families lose loved ones and can't grieve and can't feel like they can be with their family members. And it is certainly a burden that we are only beginning to write about and discuss. But I was, for the first time since COVID, seeing many of my family members this past weekend. And because we were together for the first time in a long time, we sat down to do some shabads, and my cousin actually sang like a Siana favorite theme shabad of Gurka Bachan Basaji Nale. And it just reminded me so much of how no matter what is taken from you, the Guru's Shabad can never be taken from you. No one can ever take this away from you. And our attachment to Shabad is really what will help us come across this feeling of worry and sadness. There's another Shabad, Guru Arjan Dev Ji says, Jan ko prab apne ka taan, jo tu kare karave swami sam maslat parvan. Waheguru is really the strength of all of Waheguru's servants, and whatever is done or whatever Waheguru has caused to be done, that has become acceptable. And Guru Sahib goes on to say that Kar bahar tera parvasa tu jan kya hai sang. So here, at home, outside, everywhere, our trust should be in Waheguru. And Kar kirpa pritam prab apne naam japo har rang. And please give us this kirpa that we will always remember you, that we will always chant or remember Waheguru's name with this pyar. And I think it seems abstract, and it seems like an abstract way to try and deal with something that's very real. But I think it isn't actually so abstract, that if we can remember that despite all this sadness, that despite all of this destruction that is happening, that Guru's Shabad is always with us and nothing can take that away. That strength will always be with us. Because the fact of the matter is we are just now maybe recognizing that there's so much sorrow and destruction, but this destruction, this sadness has been of all the ages. It is not new that there is loss and that feeling of sorrow. And that's why Guru Sahib's message, I think, is so universal and why we can rely on it so steadily.
Thank you, Benji. Uncle Ji, I'd love to hear from you too. And then could you also add, when we're thinking about this, given what Benji said, how do we get to a place where we can actually see Waheguru in everyone then, if there's so much like sorrow and destruction in the world? Go ahead, sorry.
That's all right. Thank you. First thing I just wanted to add is that, as Smita Kaur mentioned very well, that in spite of the instruction, Guru is with us all the time, and Guru is the one who's going to give us peace and help to solve all the issues of life. And I just wanted to add the example of Tantan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji, even when he was a witness to when Babur attacked India, and even he saw all the murders, all the killings, all the lootings, all the rapes and everything going on with the Babur army, doing it to the Indians. Guruji still said, "Why Guruji, it is your hukum which is happening. It is your hukum, it is your hukum. You are the one who takes care of everybody." Now, I don't want to prolong this too much. Then next question which Harleen Gaur Beti ne put kita, how do we realize the best way, as much as my understanding, is to reading Gurbani, remembering Vaheguruji's name, doing Vaheguru Simran. Those things provide us strength and clarity. Going to Guru Granth Sahib whenever you are in a mood down, looking at the destruction, going to Guruji's room and reading the Hukamnama, understanding the Hukamnama, do Ardas and then do Hukamnama, and Guruji will always give us Hukamnama, which will pick us up and make us understand this word is temporary. Everybody who's getting whatever to us looks like bad is his will, and his will is always 100% right. He's going to teaching the lesson to somebody, or somebody's doing, or something did not do it, and that's why this is happening. Then the reality, once it comes in our head, we understand, then we can reason out that we should be prepared ourselves so that we don't have to go in the mood down. And that's the way I myself handle these situations, not only situations handing outside, even in the family problems that happens. I'm sure there are deaths in the families, there are happiness times in the families, but our teaching from the Guruji is to stay tranquil, easily, and say, thank you, Vaheguruji, everything is Vaheguruji's will, the death is Vaheguruji's will, the birth is Vaheguruji's will. The passing the best in the exam is Vaheguruji's will, failing in the exam is Vaheguruji's will. But again, there are certain our doings which Gurbani teaches us that we should prepare ourselves. Guru Nanak Dev Ji said in those Babanwani words very clearly, "Aggon de je cheti hai." If the rulers and people of India were well prepared when they heard the Babur was coming, they were prepared well, then it would have worked well. But what they did, they were more interested in that, oh, okay, the Pandits will do the prayers, the Muslims will do the prayers, the Qazi will do the prayers, and the Mughal forces which is coming from with Babur will get blind and will get disabled and they will not win. Those things don't happen. You got to do what Guruji tells us. You got to prepare yourself. You got to protect yourself. You got to remember Vaheguruji's name when the time is there. And last minute, the things don't work. And if we get to those lessons, then we don't have to face the situation. And again, as Gita said very, very, very loudly and clearly, that always Guru mere sang, sada hai nale, And if we remember that, that will help us. Thank you. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Uncle Jay, I actually wanted to follow up with you because we have another question from a Sangat member that I think ties into this really well. So this Sangat member asked, and I think given everything you said, then when we're doing ardas, is it okay for us to ask for good things like health, general well-being, even, we say sarbat napala, or is it okay for us to ask for anything for that matter, since everything has to happen according to hukam and it's up to us to accept that hukam? Why do we care to ask for anything in particular? So felt like that expanded what you were just saying. So maybe you could address that too.
First thing I would like to say to the audience is that it is perfectly okay to ask for anything, according to my understanding of Gurbani. Guruji is our father, mother, all the relations. We are his children. Children, although know very well their father protects them, father will provide everything. But still, they ask, I want to buy the balloon, I want to buy this food, I want to do that. Same thing with us. We are children. We will and we should. We have every right to ask for everything. Now, the question comes that sometimes Gurbani will teach us that we are asking too little. That's what it is. But that comes slowly with when getting closer to Waheguru, getting more attached to Waheguruji's Naam, then we realize the value of what we are asking for. To begin with, we may ask for good food or a toy, a job or something. But when the time comes, gradually we understand Gurbani, gradually we get closer to Waheguruji. The best thing to ask, which will give us everything, is Waheguruji's Naam and Waheguruji himself. If we can be closer to Waheguruji and get to his Naam, that will please Waheguruji. Gurbani tells us in the Japji Sahib, Sacha Sahib, Sach Naim, Pakhyan Pahapar, Akhen Mangyan De, Daat Kriyadar, Ver ke Girgi Se, Muh ke Bulul Bodiye, Jisum Ture Pyar, Amrit Vela Sach Naam, Vadiyai Vichar. So Vadiyai Vichar, Waheguruji is very important. Getting closer to Waheguruji is important because he's our father. We want to please him. Waheguruji is kind to all of us, whosoever he has created, all the living beings. But definitely, if we try to please him, maybe we can get more things out of him. And the most important thing to get out of him is to get closer to Waheguruji. And ardas should be, Waheguruji, please keep us close to you. If we could ask for that, but that comes not immediately. May slowly and sincerely it comes to us, then gradually all other demands, all our wishes will just go away, will not come to our head. If we get there, then we get everything in our life given to us with Waheguruji. And this is what pleases Waheguruji if we realize, thank him. Although Waheguruji is looking for our praise. He doesn't care. He's not going to get better. He doesn't get bigger if we praise him. If we don't praise him, he doesn't get smaller. But it is our benefit. If we get closer to Waheguruji, we get the Naam Simran, we get closer to Waheguruji, then we get Waheguruji's qualities in us, and which will give us success. That's how it works. It is Naam Simran, getting closer to Waheguruji. That way, Waheguruji's qualities come in us. That way, our behavior gets modified. We are better in this life, next life, because Waheguruji is with us all the time. In this life, next life, wherever we go, he is with us. And that's what we should ultimately ask for. Even Bhagat Kabir Ji, when he asked for various food things, give me sana or tolai, and the Shabad Ujjal Rasi can put it on the screen, then Atsir Mangu Chuna, Pao Kiyo, Sangaluna, Atsir Mangu Dale, Moko, Dono, Bhagat Jawale, Sana or tolai. He asked for the worldly things, but he said in the end, मैं ना ही कीता लबो. I'm not a greedy Waheguruji. मैं ना ही कीता लबो. एक नाम तेरा मैं फबो. The main thing I'm happy is with your naam. That's what I really want. Naam tera main pabbo. That is what we should do. Although I don't mind, Guru Arjan Dev Ji himself said that I would wish to have Manuline Pulgi Shabdi Guru Arjan Dev Ji कहना कि मान मांगो तान मांगो सुत Lakshmi tan de. That किस line the beginning? I forgot the beginning of the Shabad. Guruji, if I want honor, Guruji, from you. If I want power, I want it from you. If I want children, I want it from you. If I want any worldly things, I want it from you. If Guru Arjan is an example for us, he's telling us that we can ask anything, everything. Nothing is off the limit to ask from Guruji, but keeping Guruji's naam and asking for naam is the best. Again, obviously, Guruji will not do exactly what I want. I want to win $1 million lottery. Why is not going to do that? Why Guruji is going to do what is right for me? Whether it is right for me to do, he knows the best. He knows our inside. He knows the whole surrounding, what is good for us. So we should not get discouraged. If we ask for something that, okay, this thing I want to be successful in this lottery and this and that. I mean, he knows what is right for us. He knows what is right for everybody else. So whatever he does, if he accepts, good. If it doesn't, even then we have to thank him because he knows the best. But as I said, in the end, it should be accept Guruji's naam, which is the best thing, the only thing which should be asked for. I hope I answered.
I think also if I can just add a little bit to what Uncle Ji was saying about how like Waheguru doesn't need the praise or the vichar. It's, I think for me too, our das, no matter what it is that we're asking for, is never belittled because it is an action, like it is a physical, tangible thing that one can do to help promote their relationship with the Guru. Like who else should we ask for these things? And the very act of, even if it's a small thing we're asking for, like to do good on a test. And so you go to the Guru and you say, Guru Sahib, please, let me do well on this test. Like, it's not whether or not we do well on the test or not do well on the test that ends up mattering or being meaningful. What's meaningful is that we sought the Guru for that help and for that support. And I think for like many of us need something tangible to help us further that relationship, to get to the point that Uncle Ji was saying, where what we will want to ask for as Nam is that it starts with these steps of recognizing and appreciating that Guru Sahib is actually a part and controlling everything. And so, I used to think, as a kid, I used to like ask to do good on a test. And then as I started learning things, and I kind of thought, well, why is somebody asking for somebody's birthday like this cushy or that cushy? But then, I mean, that actually is not the way that I should have been thinking. Like, no matter what you're asking for, it's okay, because what's the valuable thing is that who we are asking it from is the right person. And I think many of us, all of us in many ways, need that tangible relationship so that we can then develop the more spiritual, non-descriptive relationship that we're looking for. And for many in my lifetime, that ardas, no matter what it is I'm asking for, helps me feel better. It gives me solace, just the asking, because you feel like you're giving up your chinta to something else. And I think that in and of itself is so helpful.
Thank you both. That was, I guess just a different perspective on that question I hadn't thought of. So I really appreciate that. I guess heading in connected but different direction, both of you, and Benji, especially right now, you were talking about, this idea of thinking about this way of doing our das as a tangible relationship, as a way to sort of structure our desires in the world. And we did get a couple of questions actually talking more specifically about living Grish Jivan and thinking about how do we, I guess I can pose it this way as the Sangat member did, that, when we're living this Grish Jivan, we have the responsibilities or expectations perhaps of marriage or parenthood. I think you could expand the Sangat member's question and even think about, for me it's school, for other people it might be work. How does one get to a place where they can, and Uncle G, to your point too, yes, we should be asking for Nam, but how does one get to a point where they can concentrate on Nam, Bani, Amrit Vela Kakajat? How can we make sure to hone that concentration while we have these other distractions going on? And what, I guess, because the question was specifically around Grishjivan, like what what preparation can someone do to feel like they're ready for that stage in life as a Gursikh? Benji, you can start first.
Sure. I think, the question is interesting in the way that it was framed related to Grishjivan and marriage in particular. But I think at the heart of the question is how do we keep our centering of focus no matter what the distraction? Because the distractions can be anything. And this is really in many ways the life quest of a Gursikh. I was trying to look up some things related to Grishjivan in preparation of this question. And I did come across, a beautiful shabad from Guru Ramdas Ji. And he says, Mai baap putar sab har ke kiye, sabna ko sanbandh har kar diye. These relationships that have happened, mother, father, sons, all of them are actually made by Waheguru himself. And these have all been established by Waheguru. And so the Rahal line of this is Hamra jor sab reo mere bir, har ka tan man sab har ka vas hai sarir. So all of me really belongs to Waheguru, and I have given up all of my own strength and have submitted entirely under Waheguru's control. And I think it helped me see a little bit about the fact that these distractions that we might call distractions, or this life that we're living, or the relationships that we have, whether they are our spouse, our parents, our children, these were also created by Waheguru. And so how do we live in this like narlep while we're still living? How do we live like that? Only Waheguru can infuse that devotion. The Shabad goes on to say, Pagat jana ko sarda aap harlai, viche grist udas rahai. So when the commitment to Waheguru exists, Waheguru has given that. And then in the midst of all this grist jivan, that Gurmukh remains unattached. And when we develop that love, jab antarpreet harsyo ban ai, tab jo kich kare, so mere har prapai. Then once we develop that love, then whatever we're doing is wonderful for Waheguru. And so I think, I don't know the answer for how do we live like an undistracted, because I struggle with that myself, but I think it goes to a couple of things. One is to do our das, that we somehow gain the strength and get the kirpa to make those connections with Guru and with Waheguru. And the other big strength, and this is maybe a plug for the Siana retreat, is also it's important to find the sangat that will help us do that. And so when our sangat helps us, I don't think we should think we can do it by ourselves. Guru Sahib says to come into the company of sangat, of those who are reciting Waheguru's Naam, and that's how we will learn how to be connected despite all of the different distractions around us. And I guess specifically to that question, even in the idea of Grishjivan, like we can't always pick. We don't pick our parents, we don't pick our children, like those are just relationships that are formed. But when it comes to a partner in life, if that's something one chooses to do in their life, you can pick your partner to be someone who is also going to not just be a partner in as a distraction, but also a partner that's going to be your sangat to help you on this path. And I think that will help that relationship not be such a distraction when both individuals are trying to help each other live the Guru's path. And I don't know that that's a sure pathway to remove all of our distractions. I think in the end, we really need Guru's Kirpa to do that. But I don't think it means that we don't live within this life. And I think Guru Sahib has said that many times. You can never leave the distractions or the Maya of this life. the important thing for us to do is that while we live in the Maya, to remain, like the lotus flower, detached from the Maya.
Uncle D,
Uncle
please.
G, I think you're muted.
Oh, Angie.
Very nicely said, Sangeeta. The first thing I would like to point out that I don't like to use the word distraction. They are maybe in the worldly field it feeds distraction, but in the spiritual field, our responsibilities, how to handle whatever is going on around us. And important thing which Guruji told us, okay, we have to keep a balance of everything. Our responsibilities of marriage, our responsibilities are responsible to our spouse, our children, our profession. These are all the duties why Guruji gave us to perform. Again, as Sangeeta mentioned very nicely, that the best thing is how we can handle, instead of us worrying, we should do ardas, as Sangeeta mentioned. Why Guruji, you give me strength to handle all these relationships. Now, as Sangeeta said, choosing the partner is in our hand. I think maybe 1% in our hand. I think still 99% is in Vaiguruji's hand. Sometimes surprise happens and we meet our partners of life. And that's why Guruji is doing it. And as in good old time in India, they always said, marriages are made in heaven. So, which is, I feel that is true. I mean, you cannot even imagine sometimes, and that happens. And because it's by Guruji's will. Yes, as Sangeeta ji has mentioned very correctly, that whatever 1% we have in our hand, we should always try to look into, as the question asked on this list by the youth is submitted, that we should always look for, as Sangeeta ji mentioned, a good companion who can also help us achieve our goals. And it is not only in spiritual way, in worldly ways also, we always look for somebody who agrees with us, who we both have things in common. A person who jogs or runs will always like to have somebody who runs also same time. Why? Because that they can promote one another, as Sangeeta ji has mentioned, help us achieve the goals we have in our mind. Sometimes in our same profession, you are a doctor, you may like to have another doctor to have. Again, these are little bit, 1% in our hand, rest 99% is in Vaiguruji's hand. And now, if we are a very well Gurmat orientated in our mind, our foundations from Gurmat are strong, from our family, from our Sangat, and from whatever why Guruji gave us the context in our life. Always I say that a lot about that, because I have learned whatever I've learned about Sikhi is all from the Sangat and the context with why Guruji sent it to me. I never imagined that I would be with Kuldeep Singh uncle in my life. Kuldeep Singh Birji, I should say that in my life. I never imagined I will be in company with Sangeeta Bachi in my life, or Mandeep Singh. These are just few names. Pai Pishora Singh ji and all, Dr. Gurbakh Singh ji. Why Guruji sent those for me? This is the thing we have to remember, that thank Guruji for our company. Ujjal Didar Singh ji. I've never met him in my life before till recently. But I feel I can learn from all of you audience. So these are the things that why Guruji presents us. Ardas is, that's why we do Ardas, ke sahi pyare male, jina milya tera naam chit aave. Always when we say these words in Ardas, we should keep in our mind and say as sincerely as possible, because those, if we get the right company, now, again, I want to maybe a little bit more in addition to it, which I have experienced in my life, that maybe why Guruji, now I think many times, why did I come to America? Now, maybe why Guruji's duty for me to come here. and meet you guys, meet everybody, and have my neighbors see a Sikh around living in this area. That's duty why Guruji has given me. Then by Guru Nanak Dev Ji di Sakhi, most of you I might have heard, and Guruji said, "Jede pind achhe bande san, ujjud jao." Maybe that's what is working on us. And why Guruji ne sanu ujadan vaste idhar bheja hai. Now, same thing, I come to the, I take that same thing to the intercultural marriages, because a lot of times, a lot of my older friends, they look bad on the intercultural marriages. They may have a reason for it, and that's okay. But I feel it is still happening in Vaiguruji's will. Maybe Vaiguruji gave the duty to the Gursikhs to spread the word to the non people knowing the Sikhs. And maybe Vaiguruji, so we should, if the intermarriages, if the person takes the responsibility, that feels that it's my responsibility to carry on Guru's word and pass on Guru's words to the other families. Look at the positive sides of this and keep always Vaheguruji in mind, and everything happening as Smita ji said and Harleen ji said, it is all Vaheguruji's hukum which is happening, and we should keep ourselves, our decision making, our ideas, our intellect out, and have Guru's reading, Guru's teaching, and Vaheguruji's will in our mind. Then everything, whatever happens, happens well. Many times I worry what will happen to Sikhi in 100 years from now. But again, the Vaheguruji gives me strength. He says, "You, Amarjit Singh, do your duty, do your part. Leave my job to me. You won't be here 100 years from now. Leave my job to me. I know what to do. I know what to do. So don't have chinta. Nanak chinta mat karo. Chinta kisi hi hai." The main thing I would stress here is that we should stress on our job, do our job well, improve ourselves very well, set up the right things which Vaheguruji gives us the duty to do, to our spouse, to our children, to our children's in-laws, and do our job and present as model Sikhs as Guruji wants us to be, as Vaheguruji given us strength to be, and then don't worry about how it will affect others and how the results will come out. Those worries are the one which we should give up to Vaheguruji, and I think that's what I think about the marital relations. Now, in this question which I read, which Chapman Kaur has sent me, I read that it is not compatible to have a married life, that we can, it's not compatible with doing Nityanam. It's not compatible with doing Kirtan. It's not compatible with doing Seva. It is completely compatible, and Guruji themselves set us the example. All our Gurujis, except Guru Harchin Sahib Ji, who was younger age, were married, had children, had wife, had grandchildren, whatever, so they took their responsibilities well. And they still stayed attached to Vaheguruji's name. We have a model to look for. Guru Gobind Singh Ji gives us the example of how he loved Baba Ji Singh, he loved Baba Jizar Singh, Baba Fateh Singh, Baba Jura Singh, he loved them all, but still he was detached. If Vaheguruji took them away, he didn't cry. He still gave us example that Vaheguruji, thank you Vaheguruji, that they did their duties right. And that is what we all should try to learn from our Guruji's life experience. Again, Guru Nanak Dev Ji had gone for years and years for the sake of the whole world, leaving his children and family at home. But if you read the Janamsakhis, Guru Nanak Dev Ji was a very caring father and caring our children. He left his wife and children as in-laws' house. We taking care of them. They were taken care very well, and took care of his father and mother, said fateh to them, do everything. Then he went out for 7 or 8 years for mission which he thought Vaheguruji has allowed him. So again, not making too long, we should do our mission, our job, whether we are a doctor, engineer, computer, teacher, whatever we are, we should do our job well. And wherever we are, we can always get a balance of life. Guruji told us Hasandiyan, Kalandiyan, Kamandiyan, Penandiyan, Viche Hobe Mukt, that we can do everything. We can enjoy life, everything we can do with the family, with the children, everything. And still we can be detached, as Sangeeta Bachi has mentioned very well, and keep Vaheguru Ji in mind. जिमें के अगर नाम देव जी कह रहे सन हाथ पांव से काम कर चीत निरंजन नाल. So if our heart is with Vaheguru Ji, we can still live with our family, have normal relations and children, and still be attached to Vaheguru Ji. I don't want to make it too long. I hope I passed on, I explained myself well, and this is what I feel. Thank you. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh.
Thank you so much, Uncle and Benji. I think that Mera dimag ch bhi aaya si oh nanik chinta mat karo. But the other salok that is coming to mind for me, and I think when I think about Uncle, you said, you know, you don't like to think about these as distractions, and so this salok from Sheikh Farid ji came in my mind. Sabar e swao je tu banda der kare, vad thive daryao tot na thive vahda. And to me now, I'm thinking about this. I'm like, okay, if they're not distractions, this imagery from Faridji came in my head of, you know, when we don't practice patience, when we don't have sabr. To me now, I'm thinking about that instead as I'm trying to think of a different word as distraction, but this idea of when we are resisting hukam, when we don't have that patience, that I think this imagery is so beautiful, right? That you sort of end up splitting into all of these small streams, right? Like our mind, our attention ends up splitting, and we can't concentrate and focus on Nam. We can't focus on the desire to accept hukam, to be with Guru Sahib, to understand Vaheguru, because that patience that I think often of the patience that Guru Nanak Dev Ji needed to do these udasiyan for so long and have, you know, the entire Siddh Gosht, I think, is a practice of sabr, a practice of patience, of sitting with someone who you disagree with and having these really hard conversations. And I think a lot of times in society today, especially with social media, like that's not something that we really know how to do anymore. It's very these like quick back and forths. You have to make your point, that's it. And so to me, I'm also, I guess, hearing and sort of contemplating what you all have shared through this idea of sabr as well. And I think one tangible thing I think I've tried to start doing, especially in the last year or so, as school and different things have gotten busier for me, I feel like, and the pandemic, it just, everything's been more chaotic. And I feel like I haven't had time to like sit with loved ones, talk with them to see what's going on. And so sometimes, of course, that, especially when you're all living in one house together, maybe that can create tensions, maybe, you know, things bubble up. And so this idea of like, okay, if we are sitting together, let's all, you know, bring a shabad that's on our mind and have our conversation around this vichar. If, you know, I had a loved one last year who had to go through major surgery, and before the surgery, we all sat and just did vichar on the hukam for that day to sort of calm our minds, accept that patience before we went in to see how it went. So I think even if that's like a tangible takeaway, I guess people need, of just everything that you're doing, you know, Sangeeta Benji started us off by saying she had the opportunity to do Kirtan with family last weekend. Like those, what are the ways in every moment of our life that we can center Guru and bring Guru Sahib back into our conversations? Because I think even if our mind is running around, even if our thoughts are running around, that's a way that we can also remind ourselves of like, oh yeah, this is the focus. Like this is what I'm supposed to be responding with. So I guess with that, we had, I guess, two questions that I think were framed differently, but I think do relate to each other. We had one Sangat member who had a question about fighting laziness in terms of like keeping our rat, keeping our sikhi. And then on the other hand, we had someone asking about whether overambition or a lot of ambition towards one's career would be considered an indulgence in Maya. And yeah, I guess maybe, whoever wants to start, but maybe just briefly, because we do have a lot of questions still to get through, and hopefully we can do the live questions as the Sevadars have requested. But what, when you think about this balance of Alis and Maya, are Alis and Maya maybe connected? How do we strike this balance of like ambition and laziness in terms of Feel free to take the example of career, for example, or something else.
You know, it's funny because you're posing a question to two people who have clearly had a lot of ambition in their lives on a career level, you know, in order to do that. I think, you know, interestingly, the hard part with ambition for career, and this is not that ambition for career, I think, is wrong or bad. Like, you know, I think there is a lot of value in education and in gaining new knowledge. But if we think that this knowledge or this career will somehow bring us closer to Waheguru, I think we have to ask ourselves, is our ambition to serve ourselves, or is our ambition to serve Guru and Panth? And if the ambition is to serve Guru and Panth, then that's one thing. But if the ambition is just to continue and further our ego and we just keep grasping, I mean, Guru Sahib says, like if we're just like going through this hamster wheel with no end goal in mind, then I don't think that's according to the Guru's mat. But that's not to say that there isn't value in learning and educating yourselves and contributing to society and the community. And in many ways, sometimes the work that we do helps us remember the awe-inspiring nature of Waheguru. So, you know, whatever that job is, and it doesn't have to be being a doctor or an engineer, but if it's an artist or a journalist or, you know, even somebody who works in retail or in management, if it's a business that you're providing a job for other people, whatever the work is valuable to do, is particularly if you're serving Waheguru's creation. And sometimes that work reminds us of how amazing Waheguru is. And if the work centers us back to Guru Sahib, then I think it's not that the work will get us towards Guru Sahib, but sometimes it can be used as a tool to help us remember Guru Sahib. But if our ambition for career creates a laziness in actually spending time with the Guru, then that is, I think, the illness that we all face. Because at the heart of it, it's really hard to get rid of ego. Like, you know, it's easy to convince myself that the study I'm doing and the work I'm doing is to help the community. But it's really hard to separate that from my own ego, because it feels like I am doing this, or these accolades or these like praises are now coming to me, rather than that this is all in Guru's Kirpa. Like, it's a really fine line. And I think it's hard because sometimes our minds get so focused on the ambition towards career that we become lazy in the work and effort towards remembering Waheguru and following the Guru's path. And that's where I think things get dangerous. And I think it goes back to doing our loss, like, or moments of reflection where all of a sudden you think, wait a minute, let me recenter myself. What am I doing? Is, you know, let me read this Shabad today, and where is my focus? Where is my consciousness? Is it that I'm just wanting to gain the praise of my parents, my colleagues, the society, the profession, to say, oh, Sangeeta Kaur, you did a good job? Or is it that this work brings me joy, and when I do this work, I'm reminded every day about how amazing Guru and the Kirpa of Guru is, that this work even exists. And so I think, you know, I don't know if it answers the question of how do we not become lazy, because it's really easy to be lazy. Really easy for me to spend a lot of time like reading OBGYN journals rather than reading Shabads. But I think kind of what you said, Harleen Kaur, about every once in a while remembering to center yourself with the Shabad is a really good way of trying to help us not be lazy. And when we do those things, I think it helps promote us to continue to do that. And then I know we keep harping on the Sangat thing, but I think finding Sangat that keeps you accountable and keeps you doing the things that are important to do are really helpful. There was like another Shabad just about how this importance of Sangat can help us not be lazy. And it is, Mere man har har naam te aaye, kar Sangat nit saad ki gur charani chitlai, that always we should keep the company, like the good company of the sadhus, and keep our consciousness on the feet of the Guru. And mere man har har naam dhyaye, constantly remember Waheguru. And then, you know, beautifully, because one will ask, well, how do we know who is Sangat? And Guru Nanak Dev Ji so beautifully says, Sat Sangat kaisi janiya? How are we to know who are these Sat Sangat? Jitha eko naam makarniya. Wherever the Waheguru's name is remembered, is chanted, that's how we know that we are in the right company. And that even reminds me of a quote that I think Ruben Balverji once said at a Siyana retreat, that you know you're in good company if you follow the Kirtan. And I think those are the things that can help us remember what our true ambitions in life should be, whether they are in our careers, in our work, in remembrance of Waheguru. I think we need to stop thinking about these things as separate things. That just leads to why we live in this duality, because we separate our lives out. But when we really look at our whole life, our daily living, whatever we're doing is part of one constant and one connection with the divine, then I think we will hopefully lose that duality.
Again, Sangeeta ji has mentioned very well most of the points, but what I would like to add a little bit, it is definitely good to advance in your careers, whichever career anybody is. But as she mentioned clearly, we should keep this clear in our mind that you are doing seva of Vaheguruji, even advancing that, even learning. When it comes to, I did it, I do it, I passed it, I saved the patient, I did that, that is where the problem comes. That is where our progress towards Vaheguruji goes down. Study karna, achieve, high position achieve karniya, become head of a company, great. We should remember we are taking Guru's message ahead in our company. More people will get to see if Harleen Kaur becomes the head of her department and this and that. We keep in our mind that we are serving Panth, we are serving community, we are serving Vaheguruji. Problem comes when we start saying that I did it, and that is what has to be avoided at every step. And that strength to avoid this comes from Ardas and understanding from the Guruji that this is what the reality is. This Guruji is teaching us that keep Vaheguruji in mind, and Vaheguruji gave you strength. I cannot save a patient if he didn't give me that strength in my hands. How could I do surgery? Can't. And Gurbani apna anda hai, na hai, Veda Sanda ikatha hoya. Fune di Bani, the last slok, beta the page on 1300 te mera khayal hai 80 or 81 or something like that. They close the page there. Veda Sanda ikatha hoya. ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸਾਰੀ ਲਾਈਨ ਤਾਂ ਭੁੱਲ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਵੈਦਾ ਨੇ ਸੋਚਿਆ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਠੀਕ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੂੰ, ਪਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਨੂੰ ਨਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਮਨਜ਼ੂਰ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਠੀਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਏਗਾ। ਵੈਦਾਂ ਸੰਦਾ ਇਕੱਠਾ ਹੋਇਆ, ਇਹ these are the words I think will come in computer। ਫੁਨੇ ਦੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਉਂਦਾ 1300 ਤੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਖਿਆਲ ਹੈ 73 74 75 something ਆਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਸ਼ਬਦ। Last slog. The main point I want to say is that it is whatever is happening is Vaheguruji's will is doing it. But the only problem comes that if I consider I got rid of this patient's cancer, that is my problem. Vaheguruji cancer, clear the cancer. Vaheguruji used me to do that. That is what I should think, and not think that I did it. And same thing with any profession. I know a medical profession, that's why I talk about that. They koi bacha cha Sangeeta Kaur bachi enni vadiya gursik seva kardi pai pan seva kardi bhagwan ho gayi hai, ek ma ke main credit lama ke buffalo jammi pali hai te main ha te na, Vaheguru ne ਜੇ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਅੱਛੇ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਨੇ ਤਾਂ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਨੇ, ਜੇ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਅੱਛੀ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਨੇ, ਜੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸੰਗਤ ਮਿਲਦੀ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਨੂੰ ਹਰ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਤੇ ਯਾਦ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਹੈ, ਤੇ that will keep us in the right track and not get us into trouble of ego. And this is what I think I wanted to add to what Sangeeta has very nicely said.
You know, Uncle G, that also reminded me like another tangible thing that helps us, and is this dropping of our last names. So when we carry a last name of Singh or Kaur, what I have found in my life that has been really helpful for on a tangible level is that then our accolades and our successes belong, you know, our names mean something, and the name of having Singh or Kaur, as you know, whether it's Dr. Kaur, Dr. Singh, or, you know, if there's a whatever successes there are in life, that success then belongs to our father, Guru Gobind Singh. And I think that helps us in a very tangible way remember that these successes are good things and are bad things, are reflections of our Guru's kirpa, not our own. And even something really small as making your name recognition directly linked to the Guru is something that helps me remember who to thank for my successes.
And really, I love that interpretation of that, Benji. And I think you've brought us to another important part of or section of these questions, which is, you know, we've been having these really important, I guess, more philosophical responses, but we do have a lot of really important questions about Ret and like the tangible practice of Sikhi as well, which I think you've brought us to. So, Uncle Ji, I'm going to start with you. I have a few for you, and then after that, a few for Benji. So, Uncle G, if you could give your thoughts on why Sikhs should cover their heads, as well as why Sikhs keep their case. And then the last one is a bit different, whether we can perform Amrit Vela without doing Ishnan, without bathing.
I'll take the middle one first about the case. Case is our Guruji's stamp on our head. Case people keeps or not keep around the world as they want. But we Sikhs keep the case as Guru Gobind Singh Ji has asked us to do. If we want to follow Guru Sahib Ji, if we want to call ourselves Guruji Sikhs, we have to listen to Guruji's, follow Guruji as jo Gur kahe soi pal mane, without questioning. And there are Guruji's hukunamas available. Himself wrote down that case sadi more hai. More means stamp on us. Again, a lot of Rayatnamas also clarify. Then whenever we get a chance and we take Khande Bhati Di Paul, which we should all do, so we can call ourselves Sikhs, our Gurus at that time, Panj Pyaras at that time, make sure they tell us that kesan da Roma di bedbi karni nahi. ਇਹ ਦੋਨੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਹੈ ਰਹਿਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਕੁਰਹਿਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਹੈ ਜੇ ਬੇਅਦਬੀ ਕਰੀ ਰਹਿ so simple reason easy reason to understand is it is the order of our Guru and it makes us closer to our Guru and we should be proud Guru gave us his own form and case did not start with Guru Gobind Singh Ji. Other thing I wanted to point out to the youth, Guru Nanak Dev Ji in the Sakhis of Guru Nanak Dev Ji time, it is quoted by Bhai Mani Singh Ji, that Guru Nanak Dev Ji, first thing he told Bhai Mardana Ji when, before they went on Udasi is, ke case nahi katane. Amrit Vela, naam japna. So, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the time to case has been important, but Guru Gobind Singh Ji made it a permanent, mandatory, in written form, in seal lagati, ਕਿ ਇਹ ਸਾਡੀ ਮੋਹਰ ਹੈ, ਸਾਡੀ ਸੀਲ ਹੈ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਿਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ, ਸੋ ਕੇਸ ਰੱਖਣਾ। This is what I understand. Somebody may understand better. I don't want to get involved with that. A lot of books written about the advantage of case, the disadvantage of case, this and that. We don't get involved in any controversies. We just say, this is what Guru told us to do it. We do it, no question asked. Now, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੇਸ ਕੱਜਣ ਸਿਰ ਕੱਜਣ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਸੀ, ਉਹਦਾ ਸਿੰਪਲ ਆਨਸਰ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਜਦੋਂ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਕੇਸ ਜਿਹਦੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਇਤਨੀ ਮਹੱਤਤਾ ਹੈ, as other stories of Bhai Taru ji, Bhai Taru Singh ji and all that, you know how people will not depart with their case. In Vardas also we say कि sikhi ke sang nibhai, how important the case are. We want to keep our case clean, protected, and as best as we can care for them with the kanga twice daily, keep them covered. This is the reason we keep our case covered, is we keep them clean and protected from the atmospheric pressures. Now, some people will say that we should they will tell you, keep covered as a respect for Guruji. Yes, that is true, because Guruji's word we are respecting. Now, some people will say, as covered because when we're doing part, we cover ourselves as coming from respect to Guruji. Fine, but we should keep them covered all the time. This is what I was taught, and this is what I like to tell my children, grandchildren. Again, the word is free. I cannot order. I'm not a dictator. I tell them, give them reasoning. That's what our job is, and this is why we keep our case. Now, coming to the third question about Amrit Vela without doing Ishnan. Well, I can understand if situations demand it. You are in a place where water is not available, it doesn't mean you don't do Amrit Vela. You do Amrit Vela, you do your part, you do your Nitnem, or you are sick, you are running 100 fever, 110, 101 fever, and you cannot, Fahrenheit fever, and you cannot, medically, you are allowed, you had surgery, you can take Nishnan. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't do your Nitnem. You should do your Nitnem, you should do your Amrit Vela. If Guruji is giving you strength to do it, please do it. Okay? Now, for a regular person, for the regular times, it is important that we should take Ishnan, do Ishnan, because it makes us feel more alert. We slept all night, we woke up, and we are still kind of in a down phase. We are still not fully alert. A little exercise, little Ishnan, rubbing the soap, cold water, it really makes you fully alert. And it is good to do Simran or Nitnem when we are fully alert, because then we can attach to the meaning of the Gurbani and have a brain tuned to Guruji, who we are talking about in whole Nitnem, much, much better. If we are lazy and we haven't taken Ishnan, we are still have sleep, then even if we try to do part, I mean, I'm not saying you can't do it. You can do it and you should do it, which is more important, but you will be half sleep. We will have one body done, a second one line of the part done, a second line we don't know where we were. We will do Sunaya the podium. We'll say, oh, did I do Sunaya Ishar Brahma? So did I do Manne ki gat kahi na jaye or not? We will be lost. We will be confused. We'll be repeating and we'll be doing wrong. And but if we are awake, sitting nicely straight on our back and attentive, and then it will be much more better, meaningful, and will definitely, because part ritualistically karna, chalo theek hai, sanu nitnem jaise amrit chakde ho, gande di paul chakde ho, kehde ne ke 5 baani da part zurur karna hai, 3 savere 2 dopahri sham nu rara sahib fir aap soela. We have to do that, but main aim is to understand and learn from that part and improve our day, improve our life with that. And that happens when we are very attentive, and the attentiveness comes if we can have Ishnan. And this is what I think. Um, I wish and pray to Guruji gives me strength to all the words I tell you. I practice myself, and we should all try yourself. Thank you, Ji. I hope I answered the 3 questions.
Andy, thank you so much, Uncle. Again, for the sake of time, I'm going to move to some different questions for Sangeeta Fendi. So these ones, I think the ones that went to Uncle Ji were more, you could argue personal death, sort of what you do on a day-to-day basis. These ones are more talking about, I think, particularly with bot or sometimes Sangati practices. So I think I've sent them to you as well, but I can paste them in the chat for everyone to see because they're sort of in different directions. So one is it important to do Asa Diwar in Kirtan form, or can we do it as other bot? So I'm assuming just reciting. The second one is why do we stand during Ardas? And then the last one, which you all already saw, is more so thinking about, I know nowadays there's a lot of conversations about that around using our phones for bot, looking at Bonnie on our phone. What are your thoughts on that? Is that okay? Should we be using something if we can do Bonnie Gaunt? Yeah, so things like that. And I'll post it in the chat just because I know it might be hard for Sangha to remember all of those.
Sure. So I think, oh, now I lost track. Okay, the one about the Ardas. So I'll start with that one first. Why we all stand in Ardas. And I think this is really more towards the protocols that we have developed as a panth for how we are going to run programs within our different gurdwaras. So there's no, it's not necessary, like we do ardas all the time, like personal ardasas, standing, sitting. Ardas should be happening in all forms of behavior. So I don't think there's truly a personal protocol that one has to stand for ardas every time that they do ardas on a personal level. But in the effort to kind of synchronize and standardize some of the practices at Gurdwaras. When the Rath was listed out, the protocol that came for Gurdwara functions was that the Sangat would stand together for Ardas. And I think really, it's not so much whether you're standing or sitting, it's that then people don't get lost in the, what should I do? Should I not do this? Should I sit? Should I stand? Oh, he's standing. Oh, she's sitting. And get lost in the, like, when there's kind of not a pattern, people start thinking about the lack of pattern rather than focusing on the ardas at hand. So I think it just so happened that the panth kind of decided everyone would stand for ardas, and that became the protocol. And it's not that it's wrong to sit for ardas, but it just leads to, not to use this word again, but distraction in the time of Sangat and Kirtan when you're together. And I think it just kind of takes that decision away from everybody to have to decide for themselves. Everyone's just going to stand up for Ardas, and we can now focus on the Binti we have for the Guru. And we don't have to worry about some of these little things that sometimes people wonder, should I do this? Should I do that? Now with regards to the BART questions, Asaniwar is an interesting compilation of Barneys because it's not actually written out that way, like in Guru Granth Sahib. The chants are separate from the 40s and sloks. And I think it became like a tradition that it was sung together. And for many of us, I think the practice of singing Asadivar has brought a lot of solace and a lot of questions. Like Asadivar is filled with all of these questions about practices within our daily lives and makes us really think about why we do certain activities or not do certain activities. But the medium with which that bot is relayed to us, whether we read it or we sing it, I don't think there's a wrong way. However, whatever medium it is that somebody registers with how they connect with Shabad, that's the way to do it. So, music is something that I think a lot of us can relate to and often helps the Bani like create new meaning and new emotion. But for some of us, sometimes just reading part is also is a way to connect. So I don't think that there's a wrong way. The best way is just to do the part, however it is. And then in a similar light, I guess, and these again are just my personal opinions, so I can't say that I really speak from any sense of like true authority to give these responses. But how, the interesting thing when Barney and Shabad became available on the many different technological devices that we have is that, I think some of these questions naturally arise as to how would we do the proper, like, Sharda, and would there be biadbi of Shabad because it's like on your tablet or on your phone. I think for me personally, I think what is really in some ways a benefit and a nice thing is that the accessibility to Shabad and the Guru's word has astronomically jumped when Shabad became available on some level of a device. Even in all of our Gurdwaras, when the Shabad is projected on a screen, I think the entire Sangat is able to involve themselves in the Shabad in a lot more meaningful way than they maybe used to be able to because of a limitation of how many Gurkas or how many Amar Kirtans one had. I think, again, this goes back to whatever medium works for someone to connect with Guru, then that is an okay and good medium. Like personally, I learned my part out of Gurkas. I still prefer to like sing Shabads and read part out of a Gurka or an Amar Kirtan because that's the way I learned and that was my habit that developed. I know if I like lose my place in a Barney, I'm going to be able to find it quicker in a Gurka and in an Amar Kirtan because I have that like visual memory of the pages. But I think somebody today who might be learning their part out of a phone because they live somewhere where they can't get a Gurka and don't have access to the physical text of Guru Granth Sahib, how can we deny them this ability to access the Guru's Shabad? Like it's such a great thing that they are able to now learn part and learn that Barney. I think at the end of the day, the people that I have been most impressed with are the ones that have been able to memorize all this Barney, because then it is truly like with you all the time, because no one can literally, the battery won't die, the pages won't burn, like it will really be entrenched within those people. And those are the people I yearn to be like, where the Shabads are just like in your heart all the time. But I think to get to that point, you have to start somewhere and read Barney from something in order to learn it. And whatever you're reading it from, I think if you're reading it with coming from a place of respect and a place of wanting to connect with the Guru, then that's the true respect that we show Barney. Whether you're reading from a phone or you're reading from a Gurka, if you're not really focused on the Shabad, if you're watching TV in the background, it's really irrelevant what medium you're using. Your consciousness is not focused on the Shabad. But as long as our consciousness is focused on the Shabad, then I think that's the highest respect we can pay towards Guru's Barney.
Thank you so much, Bendy. So we have, I think, like 10 minutes left and 4 really important questions that I'm going to try for us to get to. I think they're all really valuable. So I'm going to start with one that's a little bit different, but as I said at the beginning, falls in both of your expertise. So we did have a question from someone about, sort of handling Rat when it comes to big medical procedures. So very briefly, maybe just a minute each. Uncle G, I'll start with you if you can give advice for folks in terms of managing or maintaining Rahat. I'm assuming the question is particularly around GACE. Actually, sorry, they mentioned keeping their kakars as well. So Uncle G, maybe if you can speak on medical procedures in general. And then Benji, the question was actually also pertaining to pregnancy and delivery. So I'd love for you to speak from the OB-GYN perspective very briefly after Uncle.
Again, it is, as Sangeeta ji mentioned about the part, the most important thing is to be understanding and being with Guruji and keeping Guruji in our mind during procedures, that is the number one importance. If we think that doctor or my decision is working, that's no good. Keeping kakars, we have to try our best as much as we can. Kada, no problem. Kachera, 90% of the time, more than 99% of the time, is not a problem. But yes, I can understand occasionally the surgery is the pelvic part of the body and kachera may not be able to wear. Yes, some people try to wrap it around their knee or their leg or feet. Again, I won't say they are doing anything wrong, but again, in my understanding, which is, as Sangeeta mentioned, I am not an authority in Gurmat on these things. I think if temporarily they have to have without kachara, and as soon as they come back in consciousness, they wear the kachara back, I think it is reasonable. Again, it is my personal opinion, not a opinion from a Kal Takht Jathedar or somebody like that. With the Ganga, the star, again, if the surgery is not being done on head, there usually is no problem. I have gone through surgery with Ganga and the star on my head, Choti the star. I have done surgery with obviously the star all the time. But again, if surgery is on the head, then if temporarily you can be without the star, I think is nothing wrong. Guruji will pardon us so long as we do apologize to Guruji that, and Guruji understands. Guruji ਸਾਡੇ ਮਨ ਦੀ ਜਾਣਦਾ ਹੈ. ਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਮਨ 'ਚ ਪਿਆਰ ਹੈ ਆਪਣੇ ਪੰਜਾਂ ਕਕਾਰਾਂ ਨਾਲ, ਪੂਰਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਹੈ. If physical inabilities, also Guruji understands and he will forgive us. Same with case or the case on the any part of the body where surgery is being done. I would definitely request the surgeon, if there is no need to shave the hair for the surgery, please do without it. Okay. Again, some surgeries may be so risky that they cannot be done without that. Why Guruji understands that. One should not have the feeling of guilt. You know, you tried your best sincerely, and after the surgery is done, you have the case back, grow them back to Ardas, and admit to Panch Pyare and tell them that this is what I had to have open heart surgery, and they had to shave some hair from my chest, and I apologize, give me whatever punishment, but it was not in my own decision, and that is why we did. I believe it is okay, and this process of doing Ardas and having sincerity and love of Guruji and Guruji's symbol, Guruji's given gifts to us, love for them and yearning for them is more important. I know some strict Sikhs may not completely agree with me at all and completely have opposite view. But again, as I mentioned to begin with, this is what my personal opinion, and I hope it helps youth. Again, decision is each individual. There's not any specific, but love is very specific. Love and respect for Guruji, and if situation arises that we cannot have that, and apologizing to Guru for inability and feeling humbleness is more important. This is my view on this question. Was there any other question, part of the question? I forgot. Harleen Kaur, was there any part of the question?
Naiji, I think Sangeeta Benji will just speak to the sort of OB-GYN component.
Yes.
Sure. And I think, you know, I think what the question allows for us to talk a little bit about is that whether it's a time of surgery or a time of medical procedures or a time of delivery of a baby, this is a good opportunity for any sick member of the healthcare system to really open up a conversation with their physician or their provider about what it is to be a sick and what the sick uniform means to you. I think sometimes we are often shy to even talk to our healthcare providers about this being an important thing for us, our kakars. But I think it's also part of our duty to educate our healthcare providers about how much the kakars are important to us, and if there are accommodations that can be made such that we can continue wearing our sponge kakars at the time of any procedure, that they be made if possible. And, you know, whether we do that in the hospital setting or we do that in schools for our kids, like whatever the different forum is, it allows for an opportunity to educate the community around us about who Sikhs are and what the importance of the sponge kakars are. And I think at the end of the day, when that conversation has happened with most physicians, there are a lot of accommodations that can be made such that people can maintain their sponge kakars throughout any type of procedure. You know, I just had a patient the other day whose kirpan, you know, she was wearing her kirpan, and honestly, I think I never had actually thought about informing the nursing staff or the other members of the healthcare team about this idea of a kirpan. And then they brought up this idea because it hadn't been disclosed to them. They had called me saying, hey, this patient of yours is wearing a dagger. Do you know about this? And we've called security to remove it from her. And so then I went up there and talked to security and, you know, presented all of this information about Sikhs and the kirpan, and they were like, no, that's fine. Actually, then she can keep her kirpan. We're not going to take it from her. Just, you know, make us aware next time. And I thought it was a good lesson for me too, that I think we just go about wearing our sponge kakars without announcing them to the world all the time. But sometimes it can be startling to people if we haven't educated them about it ahead of time. But often with education, most people are very understanding. And then I think with the gaze question in particular, because that's the one that I think many wonder about, again, like Uncle G said, I think one should talk to their surgeon or their physician if is it actually necessary for gaze to be removed, because in most cases, one doesn't actually have to remove gaze to perform surgery. And if a surgeon knows that about you, then they would make the accommodation such that they didn't have to. And I think the best way to handle it, if you know kakars are removed from you in this process of a medical procedure, is talk to your sponge pyare. Like give that muth up to somebody else to decide. That's one of the wonderful things about our institution of a panth, is that we have sponge pyare who can help us, guide us in what we should do and how should we respond, and what the consequences are of our actions. And I think, you know, the beauty of sponge pyare is that they would look at the whole picture and the idea of what is important and the respect that's being given to the guru based on just even the Sikh coming forward to the sponge pyare. That in and of itself, I think, is something very humble and
I want to keep my gaze, etc. And in both cases, you know, they did have to advocate for themselves. I think in both cases, they might have had to search around, like shop around for a doctor who was willing to do it, but it was successful in both cases. And so I think I definitely feel this way, like going to the doctor, sometimes it's nerve wracking. You feel like, oh, well, I'm not a doctor, so I can't say anything. So just for other non-doctors in the room, it is, whether it's about your case or not, it's your health. And it's really important for you to feel like you can advocate for what you want to be done to your body or not. And in one instance, the person actually did consult their sponge first, even about how to approach, like, should I even do the surgery or not, even though it was something that was life-threatening. So that's, you know, again, as Uncle G said, it's really, and Benji, like, it's really up to you to figure out. But we do have like such important resources and institutions that we can use in this process. So this question is specifically for Amarjit Singh, Uncle Ji. So we had a live question come in asking whether it is better to complete your Nithanim fast and in haste before sleeping because you weren't able to complete it that day in the morning, or is it better to ask for apology from Vaiguruji and perhaps just do a few minutes of Simran before sleep and then, try again the next day? So just maybe in general, some 1 to 2 pieces of advice in terms of Nithanim Reth.
Well, best thing is to do Nithanim completely every day. That's the best first choice, which should be done. In case of certain problems which are unavoidable or where there is completely impossible, I can understand that before you go to bed, if you feel you have time, you should do Nithanim. If that is not possible too, then obviously keeping Vaiguruji's name in your heart all day, which we should always do with doing whatever we are doing, is which should be there even whether Nithanim is done or not done, should be there, should we continue. And I'm sure we can do Sohela part or Rara part before you go to sleep. It doesn't take more than 20 minutes to do it. We can always cut short a little bit on our sleep and do it. Doing fast part, which you said, Guruji has not set up any speed limits for us to do it. Or we must do it at 5 miles per hour or 20 miles per hour or 60 miles per hour. The important thing is, so long as when we do our Nithanim, we understand and we get benefit out of it to enjoy it. Not the ritualistic Nithanim. And I don't see anything wrong if you have less time and you want to do it fast. And as Sangeeta ji mentioned about memorizing, will work much, much easier. Then you can do Nithanim anytime. And that's why we should memorize Nithanim right in the beginning when you are young, that it is with us. We are driving and do our Nithanim. We are doing something else and which we have supposed to do our Nithanim. And even you can do Nithanim, we have to do faster. Even then, if you memorize, then it is still goes in our heart. And final thing is, if there is not possibility, try to listen to the Nithanim. Even you are in the hospital, lying in the hospital bed, even in ICU, have your son, daughter, wife, husband, do the part and you just listen to it. You don't want to break the routine. The problem is if for a little excuse you break the routine, then you will again break the routine again. This will become a habit, and which is not good. Emergency circumstances, yes, you can do Ardas to Vaiguruji and do Maafi and do it next day, but we should try our best not to break this habit. An example is, I was just talking to my grandchildren today, Guru Gobind Singh Ji's example. Even when at Sarsa Nadi, the Kinare the, when there were Mughals following Guruji and they're coming, Guru Baba Jeet Singh and Uday Singh to stop them, and he did do his Rara Sada part. He did do his Amrit Vela. He did do his. These are examples. Guruji set it for us that in dire circumstances, even then Guruji did not miss his Nithanim. And I think that's what, in short, my answer is.
Thank you, Uncle D. So I think one last question for Sangeeta Benji in particular, and then I'm also getting a message from Mandeep Virji that, we also have a story by Mukhtar Singh Ji on the Siana YouTube about this similar thing that, even when bullets were actively being shot into the Darbar Sahib during Jurasi, that Asakivar continued, that Seva continued, that Kirtan continued. So I think we have lots of really beautiful Sakhis from our history about this. So Sangeeta Benji, one question for you, and then I have one closing question for both of you. So for Sangeeta Benji, there are lots of discussions today at camps and in general in the Banth about how Gaurs aren't being treated equally, from not being able to do key sevas, for example, Kirtan at Darbar Sahib to Panch Pyare Andi Seva, to a sort of disrespect of Gaurs who maintain Rahat being Kesatari, Amartari, Dastartari, that's sort of not being acceptable. How can individual Gaurs manage this for themselves personally? And how do you think people in the Panth can move to respond to this issue?
It's a good question, and I feel so grateful to Guru Sahib that I have grown up with the privilege of being able to not have seen this or lived this life where Gaurs were treated as second-class citizens or as not as equal members of the Panth. I grew up in a community where Gaurs were part of the Panch Pyare, where Gaurs did do all of the sevas, Kirtan sevas, Hukamnama, Ardas, all of the different sevas that in many places Gaurs don't have that opportunity to. I haven't lived that life. And so it baffles me sometimes still that this life exists for so many of my sisters who have not had the same privilege of growing up in a community where I was afforded all of those, equal actions and equal respect. And I think that on an individual level or even in a setting where maybe one has grown up where this equality hasn't actually existed in physical form. The beautiful thing about being Guru Gobind Singh Ji's Gaur is that we are each sovereign and empowered to make our own choice to live in this in the Sikh Panth. Once we have committed and received the gift of Khande Ki Poho, then we have joined the Panth in equal commitment with equal responsibility as any of our Singh brothers or Gaur sisters. And the advice I give is that if we don't like that there aren't women in Panch Pyare Seva, then you as the individual, you find 4 other Amritari Gaurs or Singhs combined and you make your Panch Pyare and you go and you can administer Khande Ki Poho. Like we can take control of that. We can do that. And it's an active choice that we can make. With Guru's Kirpa, if we're given that community and strength and we see it as a problem, then we can actually do something to change that. The sevas of not being able to be done in Harmandir Sahib, I think still is like stinging to so many of us as we watch that, because we traditionally see Harmandir Sahib as like a center of Guru's work. But, Harmandir Sahib has a sordid history. Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji wasn't allowed in Harmandir Sahib. Like there's nothing special about Harmandir Sahib. So while I don't think it is, I shouldn't say there's nothing special about Harmandir Sahib exactly. That it came out a little bit wrong. But I think we shouldn't hold that somehow the ideal Sikh way of life is being administered and practiced in Harmandir Sahib as some example of the way that the rest of the world should run their gurdwaras, because for many years, Harmandir Sahib wasn't even in control of Sikhs. Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji couldn't go there himself. But this isn't something to have chinta about or to worry about. It's just that within our own communities, then we should start doing sevas. And I guess one other sidebar thing for Gaurs to do is we can teach ourselves and we can teach our sisters these sevas, and we shouldn't be afraid or, not stepping forward when these sevas are needed because we somehow think that we are not equipped or not the appropriate person to do this seva. If Guru Sahib has given us this kirpa to give us certain talents, to give us certain instructions, then it is our responsibility and duty to put those forward. And I think, we have a long history of strong Gaurs in our system, even when the system was designed to inhibit Gaurs in so many different ways. Mata Kivi Ji is like a strong maternal figure that fed an entire population of people and created this home-like atmosphere. Bibi Pani Ji created a city with her husband Guru Ramdas Ji. It was her land, actually. The manjis that Guru Amar Das Ji had set up, many of them were led by Gaurs. So Gaurs have been empowered throughout our history. It's just, I think we are still battling many of the societal stigmas and the hierarchy that has come to exist culturally. But we have been empowered by Guru Sahib to challenge those notions. And each time a Kaur goes forward and does sevas, each time a Kaur is, successfully completing the call that Guru Sahib has made for her, then that in many ways is an ambassador to furthering this quest for equality that began so long ago.
Mhm.
Oh, and then I think that was it, right? For the
Kind
most
of,
part?
yeah.
Okay.
That's great. That's a beautiful way to sort of sum up that response. So I know we're past time, but we have one final question that I saved for the end because I think it so beautifully sets this up, this webinar, to be a transition into our Gurmat retreat in a few weeks. And so this final question for both of you is, what advice would you give to someone who is trying to create a Sad Sangat through their friendships? Some specific follow-ups people did ask, can only Sikhs be our Sad Sangat? Are Sikhs the only ones who can be Gurmukh? I know we already talked about Sad Sangat being wherever Iknam is being recited, but perhaps you can give one or two pieces of advice as your closing remarks of how can we create Sad Sangat through our friendships.
The first, I'll take this question, that as Harleen-ji, you mentioned very clearly, a real Satsangat is with people who get us close to Guruji. The best person to get us close to Guruji is our Guruji and Guruji's Bani. About the individuals, in short, Gurmat oriented, Guru attached people will be called Sad Sangat. This doesn't mean that we should not communicate or associate with anybody who is not attached to the Guru. Our job is to live in this world, associate with everybody, speak with everybody, do business with everybody, still keep our mind and brain focused completely on Guruji's Naam and Guruji's teachings. So if we want to create our own Sat Sangat, we have to, the positive thing side is to find people who have similar reverence for the Guruji and Guruji's message. Number one. Number two, those who are willing to dwell and learn and understand about Guruji. And the other side of the coin is those who just are not interested at all. Those we think, as the word distraction was coming before, in the attachment to Guruji, the best way is to stay away. Just do your usually worldly business with them, but that will not make the satsanga. We don't need to associate with them when we are considered on Guruji's name. The Shabad is on page 384 of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, and Guruji tells very clearly that mera love sarya naal hai. Manu Shabad the line certainly very much block with India. I will do talk to everybody. Sabna business karanga, but I will keep my attachment to Guruji. Manu Shabad the line is the last Shabad on page 384. Rag Asa de Vichkar Tanta Guru Arjan Dev Shabad hai. Manu Shabad the line certainly block over. So this is the way Guruji taught us, that it's not that we should discard the word, but we should keep our mind with Guruji while dealing with the word. Is ਤੋਂ ਅੱਗੇ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਹ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਮਾਈਂਡ 'ਚ ਚਲੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੰਗੀਤਾ ਜੀ ਬੋਲਣਾ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਫੋਨ 'ਚੋਂ ਕੱਢ ਲੈਣਾ ਸ਼ਬਦ.
I think there's this old Punjabi saying, Jasi Sangat Tasi Rangat, that we are colored by the people that we are with. And, I don't know that just because having a label of Sikh doesn't make that person a Sangat. So Sangat is, I would agree with Uncle Ji, those that who, when connected with them, they help further kind of this quest towards following the Guru's path. But I think even for me on a personal level, Sangat is really those people that being around them and being in their company, you start to also pick up their habits and their characteristics. And the quest for me, or I think for a lot of us, is that we want to surround ourselves with those whose integrity, whose characteristics, whose qualities are like that of Waheguru, so that we can also be colored by their very presence. There's a beautiful shabad that is a little long, but it's from Guru Ram Das Ji. Agam agochar naam har uttam har kirpa te jap laya sat sangat sad pai vadpagi sang sadhu par paya. It is really with good fortune, and I guess I often translate that in my mind as with kirpa, that we have found this type of sadhu and the sangat of those that are remembering Waheguru's name all the time. And in being in that company, we are truly carried across. The Shabad goes on to say, Jin har gaya, jin har japya, tin sangat har melo kar maya, tin ka daras dekh sukh paya, dukh home rog gaya. When it's a binti that Guru Sahib is asking, that those who are remembering Waheguru, like Waheguru said, please unite me with those people, because when I am with them, then all of my ego goes away and I truly find some type of shant. Jo andan hriday naam tyave, sab janam tanaka safal paya. Those who are remembering Waheguru all the time, their lives are so fruitful. Oy aap tere srish sabtari, sab kul pi par paya. And they swim across this ocean themselves, and they carry across all of those that they have touched with them. And so, interestingly, it's like when you read novels or when you read books, you want to be the protagonist, or you can identify with the protagonist. But here the request is really like, there is a protagonist, there's Guru, and there's those that are really connected with the Guru and have these Guru-like qualities. I just want to be around them, because when I'm around them, then I can be infused with their light, and they'll carry me. I can be the bystander. I can just be the passenger. And that's really the request in some ways, is that for all of us, when we surround ourselves by those with Guru-like qualities and those who are connected with the Guru, then it is inevitable that we will also gain some of those characteristics. If they are doing part, then we're going to start doing part. If they, recognize something with Shabad, then we will start recognizing something with Shabad. If they're a passionate activist who is, fighting for the downtrodden and the oppressed, then they're going to inspire us to also do those same habits. So it's not just abstract, it is also tangible. When we surround ourselves by those, whoever those might be, that are doing the Guru's work, then inevitably we will be colored by their very presence. And I think that's the best way to try and do that. And sometimes we may not always know the company we're keeping. Is it the good company or the bad company? And in that is where I think our ardas comes in. We ask for it every day. We ask for babekdan, that we learn, and that Guru protects us in some ways, that gives us the wisdom to know, is this good company or bad company? And then the rest, back to Uncle G's original kind of thought is, I don't know that the rest is really in our hands. 99% is being done by something, that we don't control, and we can just do the ardas that we are fortunate enough to get that sangat. And when we have that privilege and have that luxury of being surrounded by those that are connected with the Guru, when we have access to the Guru, then we certainly should take advantage of it, because to not do that is throwing our lives away, because this is our time. This is our moment. There isn't another time for us to be able to do this or live this path. And so I guess that would be my advice on this question.
Uncle G, if you just, we do have to wrap up. I think we've taken a lot of advantage of the Sangat giving us their time. But if you do remember that book, maybe you could just
Yes,
share that with us.
I got that as Asamala Panjima. This Shabad is mostly to tell us how to deal with people who are not attached to Guruji. And the Shabad is Sach Naam Mera Man Laga, Logan Syo Mera Thata Baga. Guruji says, now it's on the screen, that my mind is attached to Why Guruji's Naam, but with the people, I don't hate anybody. Logan Syo Thata Baga. I do with them business like everybody else. I just do whatever needs to do. What I dealing have to be done, I do that. Bahar sood, sagal se mola, lepataron se jal mein kola. Outwardly, I am with good term with everybody, just like oil can slick around there, but I am still not attached to it. Mukh ki baat sagal se karta. I do speak with everybody. I don't discriminate. Somebody is agnostic, somebody knows Why Guruji, doesn't even know, believe in Why Guruji. I will still talk to them. पर जी संग अपना दरदा अपने मेरे मन दे विचकार रही है जिस आवत है बहुत प्याला सगल चरण की ये मन डाला I should be consider myself the lowest or lowest. Don't let the pride come in, क्योंकि नानक जन गुरपुर आ पाया अंतर्बार दिखाया क्योंकि गुरु है नानक वो गुरु है by Guruji's grace. Guruji has given me the true Guru. Why Guruji has given me, who has showed me that those who are attached to Why Guruji and those who are not attached to Why Guruji, they are all one given by Why Guruji. So that is what my show was, that we should not hate anybody who is agnostic or who is against Why Guru or who has some different thinking. We should still love, respect everybody, but apna idea nahi chhodna. This is I wanted to produce the Shabad. Thank you, Ji. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Time is up.
Thank you both so much for sharing so much of your vichar, so much of your own experiences with Sikhi. I just want to say, if anyone's feeling overwhelmed or feeling like I don't really know how to apply any of this, 35th body of Slok Saskati is coming to mind for me. Guru Sahib says, Nach durlabang swat mitre prant bandav, nach durlabang baneta bilasa. So this idea that, all these relations we talked about, children, friends, siblings, relatives, they're actually not difficult to obtain. We run around in life thinking, how am I going to get married? How am I going to make friends in this new place? Guru Sahib saying that's not actually hard. Right? This idea of Nam is what is difficult to obtain. And if we remain with this Byas, remain focused on connecting with Nam, remind ourselves how difficult that is. We learned that in Anand Sahib too, that this, it's as fine as a sword or a piece of gas, that through Guru Sahib's Kippa, through Sadh Sangat, which I think is just a reminder to, obviously we can't be together in person, but to keep coming to these events at retreat. Obviously we'll be able to hear more from each other and hopefully do more vichar and strengthen each other to really continue centering on this Byas for Nam, Byas for Guru Sahib. So thank you all so much for sticking with us so long. Pultuk Maaf. And I think I'm passing it over to Gurkiran Kaur for an announcement. Thank you so much. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My name is Gurkiran Kaur. I just want to make a quick announcement about a giveaway that we're doing right now. So it's on Instagram. It's just a little fun thing we're doing. So the prize of the giveaway I'll start off with is Malika Gorpanji's book. So we're going to have 10 people that we choose randomly who will be receiving her book. So some requirements for this giveaway to enter are: number one, so it's on Instagram. So you have to like the post, follow SY Alliance on Instagram. You also have to be registered for Siana's Gurmat retreat and also tag 3 members of your Sangat in the comments on the post. And just for a bonus entry, if you take this post and you share on your story and tag Siana, you'll have an extra entry. So we'll be keeping track of all of this. It closes in 1 week, so May 19th, and we'll be announcing the winners a few days later on May 22nd. So be sure to participate, let your friends know. We've got some exciting prizes and hoping to see all of you at retreat as well. And I'll pass it over to Koldeep Singh Uncle now for some final remarks.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. I should thank everybody. Harleen Kaur particularly, she has moderated beautifully this webinar. And also thanks to Sangeeta Kaur and Virji Amarjit Singh ji. They have answered the questions so well that it's hard to add anything to that. In these closing remarks, I just wanted to tell all the participants to pay heed to Bani. And Bani is very important in our life because that is the guide. Everybody quoted from Bani to tell you how to answer those questions. The answer of all those questions is in Gurbani. And unless the Bani is Kant, it won't help you in your daily life. So best thing is to do the Nitnem on a regular basis and learn the meanings of Bani so that it can guide you. And we started today's webinar with the first question about Mangana, that what to ask from the Guruji. Let me tell you very briefly that we can ask anything, as Dr. Amarjit Singh ji mentioned, from your father. But the father also indicates what is the best thing to ask for. Mangana, mangan lika, har jas kurte mangana. Tyagana, tyagan nika, kam krodh lobh tyagana, tells you how to ask and what to ask. And best thing is not to ask for anything. Vintud hor je mangana, sir dukhan de dukh, deh naam santokhiya, utre man ki bhuk. Guru Sahib is emphasizing that worldly things will not last for long, will only give you trouble, dukha de dukh, the highest discomfort. Although you are free to ask from your father whatever you want to ask. And then in today's webinar, the emphasis of the Sangat was also realized. And I think that is what is the theme of our retreat this year. And that's so important to have a Sangat. They say that ek Sikh, doye sad sang, panje parmeshwar. And when two Sikhs join, but the Sikh kaun hai? Sikh hoई hai jehda Guru di gal manda. The Sikh who has respect for the Guru, who leads the life according to the wishes of the Guru. So Sikh sakha bandhap hai pai, jo gur ke paane vich aave, apne paane jo challe pai, vichhod chotan kha. So ohi Sikh hai jehda Guru de paane vich aave, or one who does what the Guru wants the Sikh to do. And the Guru really wants the Sikh to take Khande Bhat Di Pahul? I think that was that question nobody asked. So I think that is in this question. Out of this question arises how to stay within Guru's Pana, and that is by taking Khande Bhat Di Pahul, because then you are doing what the Guru tells you to do. And there is no meme that I have done the part, I have done this thing, I have done that thing. That I goes away by taking Khande Bhatti Di Pahal. And also, in addition to that, when we get married, when we have a spouse, we bring another Sikh home, and that makes the Sangat. And that becomes a Sad Sangat. And then one is able to concentrate on the teachings of the Guru very well. There should be, in the marriage, there should be least amount of variables so that we have a harmonious life throughout. I think there was some questions on marriage as well. So this is with this, from the Sangat, I have grasped this, that when you get married, you become Sat Sangat because two of you are there, and then bring in few more, and that then the presence of Vaheguru will be always felt. And then you remember the teachings of the Guru and practice the Naam and practice Sikhi together. And that's how you lead a very comfortable life and make Satsangat right at home. So I wish you all the best, and thanks a lot for having these webinars, and thanks to the uh, youngsters who are conducting them, and they are so beautifully doing it. And I'm proud of all of you who have done such a marvelous job at doing this webinar. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Thank you all for joining us today. We apologize for going over time. In accordance with the announcements, hopefully you will have most of you register and see you all at retreat in 2 weeks.